like to start with a confession. I hated the BMW F900GS. It weighed a ton, was top heavy, was softly sprung, had a pretty sluggish engine. It was a kind of motorcycle which tried to be a whole lot of things but succeeded at very little. And going by how poorly it did in terms of sales, safe to say that I wasn't the only one who felt that way. And this includes BMW as well, which is why they set out to work to bring to us what is possibly the most off-road focused motorcycle that they have ever built, which is the F900GS. Quick glance is enough to establish its intent. It looks like an XL-sized rally bike, lean, sharp and purposeful. And that's because it is a colossal 10 kgs lighter than its predecessor at just 219 kgs wet. And that's because of all the weight reduction they have done in terms of the really minimalist front and rear section. You have a 14.5 litre plastic tank which replaces the 15 litre aluminium one on the previous iteration. You have this sexy looking and bassy sounding and lighter Akrapovic end muffler. You have a lithium ion battery and you have a redesigned side stand and lighter swing arm. And if you look closer, you'll also notice the changes they have made to the ergonomics. So the handlebar now sits 12.7 mm higher. The foot pegs are 20 millimeters lower. Even the seat is now a little bit taller at 870 mm on this trophy edition of the F900GS. Another thing which sets this iteration apart from the lowered fluo yellow F900GS which we get in India is the fact that you get fully adjustable Showa 43 mm forks at the front and 230 mm of travel. At the back you also have a Showa shock which is adjustable for preload and rebound damping and 215 mm of travel. And then, as you would expect on an adventure motorcycle, you also have a 21/17 wheel setup, which are tubeless spoke wheels, which are shod with Metzeler Karoo 4 tires as standard. At the heart of all of these changes lies the most significant update, which is the bigger 895cc paddle twin engine, up from 853cc, which has uncocked 105 horses and 93 Newton meters of torque. Which, when laced with the significant reduction in weight, translates into an uppercut which you don't see coming. I think this is where we simply stop comparing this to the F850GS because honestly, they don't even belong in the same conversation. Because the engine on this lies at the opposite end of the spectrum. It is raw, it is punchy, it is borderline wild. You have the closely spaced first three gears now combined and matched with the wide power band, which means that irrespective of where you are in the rev band, the engine responds with urgency. And God, I love the 270-degree bark from that beautiful Akrapovic exhaust. It sounds so wicked. But here's the thing, all of this mayhem is orchestrated because the fueling is immaculate. Now I was riding in the Enduro Pro mode with the traction control switched off. And needless to say, it took very little for the rear to come around. But the throttle on this is like a dial. It's really precise and you have really good connection with what the rear is doing. And that means you always feel in control and not like a passenger holding on for dear life. And a lot of that is down to two main factors. First are the Karoo 4 tires. They are undoubtedly the best 50/50 ADV tires that I've ever tested because it did not matter in what terrain we were riding. The grip and the feedback were phenomenal. And for these knobbly type tires, they are also insanely quiet. And secondly, the reason why you can get away with a fistful of throttle on this motorcycle is because of its overall balance. So the long wheelbase, the changes in the ergonomics and the revised suspension setting have transformed the F900GS into a proper off-road weapon. Now, whether you're riding at a snail's pace on a really rocky technical terrain or sending it on a trail, the bike feels really narrow between your legs so you can grip it properly and beautifully balanced. And I'm genuinely surprised because we are not even running the special 45mm Showa fully adjustable forks and the Sax unit, which is again fully adjustable, which BMW offers as an off-road accessory for the F900GS. And I mean, yeah, to be fair, in this trophy edition, the standard springs do feel a little on the softer side, but for the kind of pace that we mortals will be running, I thought they were plenty capable and gave me very little to complain about. If anything, I feel the Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro is sprung even softer, and which is why it always wants to tie itself in knots when you pick up the pace off-road. This, on the other hand, in comparison, felt a lot more sure-footed and a lot more capable at higher speeds. Sure, when you are moving it in the parking lot or taking U-turns, it will feel top-heavy like any other adventure motorcycle, barring the bigger GSs or the KTM 890 Adventure R, which have a lower center of mass. But as soon as you start moving, even at 5 kilometers an hour, this bike feels really stable, really predictable, and quite easy to manage. The only thing that I would change on this motorcycle are the foot pegs. I think they can definitely be wider to provide you more room and leverage when you're standing up and riding. But other than that, I think the F900GS outperforms every other BMW motorcycle off-road by a country mile. And on the road, it's pretty much the same, but in a good way. On the road, it will crack you up with this urgency, dishing out power wheelies at your beck and call. Overtakes are a breeze no matter what gear you are in. And even when you hit corners, you don't even have to drop the pace because the F900GS seems to forget that's an adventure bike with a 21-inch front and semi-knobbly tires. In fact, I think it's astounding the amount of speed and lean that the Karoo 4s allow you to carry in corners. And all of that while still running the exact same suspension setup that we were running while riding off-road. Just goes to show how BMW have absolutely nailed the setup and the overall balance on the F900GS. The two areas where I feel the F900GS could do better when you're riding on the road are firstly the bidirectional quick shifter. I feel sometimes there were occasions where the power cut off for a little too long when I was shifting through the gears. And secondly, the brakes. Now, when we were riding off-road, I was in fact quite impressed with the feedback, the feel and the bite from the brakes. It gave you a lot of control. But when we started riding on the road at higher speeds and braking at higher speeds, I felt that this twin 305mm disc mated to the two-pot calipers, axial calipers, did not really have enough stopping power. And if you ask me, for the kind of performance that this one packs, I think it definitely needs radial 4-pot calipers. In fact, I'm genuinely surprised that BMW missed out on them, considering they have otherwise loaded the F900GS with every other possible tech in terms of heated grips, you have cruise control, you have tire pressure monitoring system, you have 5 riding modes, and you have IMU based safety aids, all offered as standard. And if you're thinking touring, you're 100% better off going for the F900GSA, Because this bike right here was definitely not designed to be a tourer. Not with its 14.5 litre tank, its bench, firm seat and its non-adjustable windscreen. And that's okay. In fact, I applaud BMW for taking this stance and developing this as a proper off-road specialist, thereby finally giving it its own identity and helping it stand tall even when you compare it to its elder sibling, the R1300GS. And mind you, while still being an absolute riot when you ride it on the road. And then when you consider its 14 lakh rupee price tag for this trophy variant, it becomes even harder to argue against it because it is almost 2 lakhs cheaper than the Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro and 1.8 lakhs cheaper than the KTM 890 Adventure R. That's like insane value for a truly phenomenal motorcycle.